The night I found the shredded dinosaur on my son's bed with a note that read, "Next time it won't be a toy." I knew my family had crossed a line they could never uncross. My hands trembled as I held that piece of paper, the ink slightly smudged from the rain that had blown in through my shattered apartment door. Police officers moved through my home like ghosts, their flashlights cutting through the darkness, illuminating the chaos my own flesh and blood had orchestrated. My brother Leo stood in the hallway, his face a mask of false concern, and I realized with a clarity that burned like ice that he had tried to destroy everything I had left in this world. But before you hear how I brought down an empire built on lies and saved my son from the monsters who shared my DNA, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to this channel, and drop a comment below telling me what you would do if your own family betrayed you. Your support means everything, and trust me, you'll want to follow along for what comes next. Now let me take you back to where this nightmare really began. My 35th birthday should have been a celebration. Instead, it was the night I got a front row seat to watching my family plot my destruction. The restaurant my mother Eleanor had chosen was Le Bernardin, a 5-star establishment where a single appetizer cost $50, and the chandeliers probably cost more than my yearly salary. I arrived in my 7-year-old Honda Civic, watching the valet park it between a Tesla and a Mercedes, like it was contaminated. Inside, crystal chandeliers illuminated white tablecloths, and the scent of expensive perfume mixed with old money. My family's table was center stage exactly as Eleanor planned it. My father Marcus sat at the head, his designer suit and Rolex gleaming as he obsessively checked his phone. Jaw clenched tight. He looked gray, haunted like a man carrying terrible secrets. My brother Leo and his wife Amanda sat across from me in matching designer perfection. Leo wore his privilege like a second skin, from his Armani suit to his Patek Philippe watch. Amanda, a former model, looked flawless and empty. Then there was Eleanor, 60 years old, fighting age with Botox and fillers, wearing a Chanel suit and enough diamonds to blind someone. She presided over the table like a general, sharp eyes constantly judging. I slid into my seat in my Target clearance dress, feeling like a sparrow among peacocks. Thank God my 5-year-old son Liam was with Mrs. Patterson, my neighbor, tonight. He didn't need to witness this. The passive-aggressive comments started immediately. Eleanor had perfected the art of the backhanded compliment, each word a surgical strike. "Chloe, darling, that dress is so practical," she said, false sweetness dripping. "I suppose when you're staring at spreadsheets all day, fashion becomes less important." I gripped my water glass. "Actually, Mom, I have an office with a door." "How nice, though not quite the corner office Leo has at Vance Financial Group. But you chose to work for strangers rather than family." There it was, the eternal comparison. Leo, the golden child who stepped seamlessly into a vice president position at our family firm after Harvard. Living in a luxury penthouse and driving a company BMW. Leo, who never had to prove himself because he was born male and never questioned anything. I had chosen differently. After my MBA drowning in student loans, I took a job at an independent firm. I wanted to succeed on my own merits. It cost me their approval, but I told myself it was worth it. The waiter appeared, a young man with slicked back hair and a practiced smile. "Good evening. Can I start you off with some drinks? Perhaps a bottle of wine for the table." "We'll have the Chateau Margaux," Marcus said without looking up from his phone. "The 2015. I did a quick mental calculation. That wine cost at least $800 a bottle for one dinner. Meanwhile, I clipped coupons and shopped sales and calculated every purchase to make sure Liam and I stayed within budget. "So Chloe," Amanda said, her voice carrying that practiced pleasantness of someone making conversation they didn't care about. "How is little Liam doing, still obsessed with those dinosaur toys?" "He's great," I said, grateful for a neutral topic. "He's learning to read. His teacher says he's ahead of the curve for his age group." "That's wonderful," Eleanor interjected, though her tone suggested it was anything but. "Though I do worry about his social development. Growing up in that small apartment, no yard to play, and no siblings to interact with. Don't you think he'd benefit from a more stable environment? A proper house in a good neighborhood?" The criticism was wrapped in concern. But it was criticism nonetheless. My living situation, my parenting choices, my financial limitations, all laid bare for dissection over oysters and champagne. "Liam loves our apartment," I said, keeping my voice carefully neutral. "It's close to his school, we have a park 2 blocks away, and he has plenty of friends in the building." "I'm sure he does," Eleanor said, her lips pursing slightly. "Though I can't imagine the quality of education in that school district compares to what he could receive at Westbridge Academy, That's where the Hendersons send their children, and the Carmichaels, all the best families. Westbridge costs $40,000 a year for kindergarten, I said flatly. I can't afford that. No, Eleanor agreed, taking a delicate sip of her wine. I suppose you can't. If only you had accepted our offers to help. Or better yet, if you had simply joined the family business like Leo did, then money wouldn't be such a constant struggle for you. I felt the familiar burn of resentment in my chest, but swallowed it down. This was how every family gathering went. The subtle digs about my choices, my income, my single-parent status. The constant reminders that I could have had it easy if I had just fallen in line. I heard you turned down another promotion, Marcus said suddenly, his first contribution to the conversation beyond ordering wine. His voice was flat, disinterested, but the criticism underneath was clear. I didn't turn it down, I corrected. I declined to relocate. The promotion would have required moving to the Chicago office, and I'm not uprooting Liam right now. He's happy here, settled in school. So you're letting your child dictate your career decisions, Eleanor said, shaking her head. That's not how successful people operate, Chloe. You make the decision that's best for the family's future, and children adapt. That's how it works. Maybe that's not how I want to parent, I said, and immediately regretted it. I had opened a door I should have kept closed. Eleanor's eyes sharpened. And how is that working out for you? Living paycheck to paycheck in a rental apartment in a mediocre neighborhood, driving a car that's falling apart, wearing discount clothes to your own birthday dinner. The table went silent. Even the ambient noise of the restaurant seemed to fade away. Leo studied his lamb chops with sudden, intense interest. Amanda found something fascinating in her wine glass. Marcus's phone buzzed, and he grabbed at the distraction like a drowning man grabbing a life preserver. I'm satisfied with my life, Mom, I said quietly, but my voice shook slightly. I'm proud of what I've built. I'm raising a happy, healthy child. I have a good job where I'm respected for my work, not my last name. I'm not living off anyone else's money. The last sentence slipped out before I could stop it, and my eyes betrayed me by sliding toward Leo. My brother's face flushed red, his fork clattering against his plate. What's that supposed to mean? He demanded. Nothing, I said quickly. I didn't mean anything by it. You think I don't earn my position? Leo's voice rose slightly, drawing glances from nearby tables. You think I'm just coasting on the family name? I think you've had advantages I never had, I said, my own voice hardening. I think doors opened for you that stayed closed for me. Maybe if you had been willing to work for those opportunities instead of running away to play independent woman, you'd have the same advantages, Eleanor snapped. But no, you had to prove something. You had to show us all how noble and self-sufficient you were. And where has that gotten you, Chloe? A cramped apartment and a 10-year-old car and a child who will grow up wondering why his mother was too proud to accept help. The words hit like physical blows. I opened my mouth to respond, but no words came out. What could I say? That I had discovered their secrets. That I knew exactly what kind of help they were offering, built on a foundation of fraud and lies. That I had evidence that could send them all to prison. Not yet, not here, not now. The tension at the table was thick enough to cut with the sterling silver knives we were eating with. Marcus had gone pale, his earlier flush fading to an unhealthy gray. Leo wouldn't meet my eyes. Amanda seemed to be trying to disappear into her chair. And Eleanor just watched me with those calculating eyes, waiting for me to break. That's when it happened. The moment that changed everything. Eleanor leaned forward slightly, her voice dropping to barely above a whisper. But in the sudden silence at our table, I heard every word with perfect clarity. While everyone's still here, she said, her eyes fixed on Leo, her voice cold and businesslike. Go to her apartment. Take back what belongs to us. I already changed the lock. Here's the key. I watched my blood turning to ice water in my veins as she reached into her purse and pulled out a small brass key. She pressed it into Leo's palm under the table, her movements quick and practiced. The key glinted in the candlelight for just a moment before Leo's fingers closed around it. Take back what belongs to us. The words echoed in my head like a death knell. They knew. Somehow they knew that I had discovered their secrets. They knew I had evidence, and they were sending Leo to my home, to my sanctuary, to my son's bedroom to steal it back. Leo's face went through a rapid series of expressions. Surprise, guilt, resignation, determination. He nodded once, a quick jerky movement, and started to push back from the table. I need to take this call, he mumbled, pulling out his phone as if it had actually rung. Business emergency, you know how it is. He left the table, walking quickly toward the restaurant's entrance, his hand still clenched around that key. Amanda watched him go with confusion in her eyes, but she didn't ask questions. She had learned long ago not to question the Vance family's private business. I sat there paralyzed with shock and fear. My mind was racing, trying to figure out what to do. Should I leave? Should I confront them? Should I call the police right now and report an attempted burglary before it happened? But I had no proof of what I'd just heard. It would be my word against theirs. And if I showed my hand now, they would know I was onto them. They would destroy evidence, create alibis, circle their legal wagons. I needed more than suspicion. I needed proof. "Are you feeling all right, Chloe?" Eleanor asked, her voice dripping with false concern. "You've gone quite pale. Perhaps you're not used to such rich food." I forced myself to pick up my fork to cut a piece of chicken, to put it in my mouth and chew and swallow, even though it tasted like sawdust. "I'm fine." "Are you sure? You seem distressed." "Perhaps all this stress of managing on your own is catching up to you. Single motherhood is so difficult. I don't know how you do it." There was something in her voice, a satisfaction, a certainty. She thought she had won. She thought I would go home to find my apartment ransacked, and the evidence gone, and there would be nothing I could do about it. She had no idea that I had changed the locks. 1 week ago, I had woken up at 3 in the morning with a feeling of dread so strong it made me nauseous. I had been having nightmares since finding those documents in Marcus's office. Dreams of shadowy figures breaking into my home. Of Liam being taken from me. I had tried to dismiss it as paranoia, as anxiety, as the overactive imagination of someone who had stumbled onto information they shouldn't have. But the feeling wouldn't go away. So the next day, I had gone to the hardware store and bought a new deadbolt. I had watched a YouTube tutorial on my phone and spent 2 hours installing it myself while Liam was at school. I had kept the old lock and key in a drawer, telling myself I was being ridiculous, that I was letting fear control me. Now I was grateful for that fear. Now I understood it hadn't been paranoia at all. It had been instinct. The dinner dragged on for another hour. Dessert arrived, some elaborate chocolate creation that probably took a pastry chef 3 hours to construct. A cake was brought out, candles blazing, and the restaurant staff sang a perfunctory happy birthday while nearby diners politely applauded. Eleanor had arranged for a photographer to capture the moment, and I had to smile and blow out the candles while flashes went off, preserving this moment of family togetherness for posterity. The irony was suffocating. Leo returned to the table just as dessert was being served, his face composed but his eyes troubled. He wouldn't look at me. That told me everything I needed to know. He had gone to my apartment. He had tried the key. It hadn't worked. And now they knew I had changed the locks. Now they knew I was expecting something. Eleanor's eyes found mine across the table, and in that moment, I saw her real face behind the Botox and the designer clothes and the fake smile. I saw calculation. I saw rage. I saw determination. And underneath it all, I saw fear. She was afraid of what I might do with what I knew. And fear made people dangerous. The dinner finally mercifully ended. Marcus paid the bill without looking at the total, probably charging it to one of the company cards. We all stood, gathered our things, made polite noises about what a lovely evening it had been. Eleanor hugged me, her embrace stiff and cold, her perfume overwhelming. "Drive safely, darling," she whispered in my ear. "You never know what dangers are lurking in the dark." It wasn't concern, it was a threat. I drove home through streets that had started to glisten with rain, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tight my knuckles ached. Thunder rumbled in the distance, low and ominous, and lightning flickered on the horizon. A storm was coming, in more ways than one. My phone was on the passenger seat, and I kept glancing at it, half expecting it to ring. But it stayed silent for 3 blocks, 4 blocks, 5 blocks. Then when I was just 2 blocks from home, it lit up. Unknown number. My heart started hammering against my ribs so hard I could feel it in my throat. I pulled over to the curb and answered, my voice shaking. "Hello? Ms. Morgan, this is Detective James Harding with the Metro Police Department." The voice was calm, professional, the kind of voice that had delivered bad news many times before. "I'm calling about your residence at 247 Maple Street, apartment 3B. There's been a break-in. We need you to come to the scene immediately." The world tilted sideways. The streetlights blurred. Rain started pelting my windshield in earnest. A break-in? When? Is anyone hurt? We received a 911 call approximately 35 minutes ago. Your brother Leo Morgan called it in. He stated he came by to check on you and found the door forced open. Can you confirm you weren't home this evening? My brother, of course. The perfect cover story. The concerned sibling who just happened to discover a burglary in progress. "I'm 5 minutes away," I managed to say. I'll be right there. I didn't remember the drive to my apartment building. One moment I was on the phone with Detective Harding, the next, I was pulling up to a scene that looked like something out of a crime drama. 3 police cruisers were parked at haphazard angles in front of my building, their light bars painting the wet pavement in alternating washes of red and blue. A small crowd of neighbors had gathered despite the rain, huddled under umbrellas and awnings, phones, out recording everything for their social media feeds. Yellow police tape stretched across the entrance to my building. A uniformed officer stood guard, his rain slicker gleaming in the streetlights. Mrs. Patterson was there in her bathrobe and slippers, looking terrified, clutching Liam against her side. My son looked small and scared, his dinosaur pajamas soaked from the rain. I ran to them, nearly slipping on the wet pavement. "Liam, are you okay, Mrs. Patterson? What happened?" "Oh, honey," Mrs. Patterson said, her voice shaking. "The police came knocking, saying there was a break-in. I didn't know if I should bring Liam down or keep him upstairs, but then they said we all needed to evacuate until they cleared the building." I scooped Liam into my arms, feeling his small body shaking. "It's okay, baby. Everything's okay." "Is our house broken?" he asked, his voice small and frightened. "Did the bad guys come?" "Detective Harding," a uniformed officer called out. "She's here." A man emerged from my building. He was in his mid-40s, solid and broad-shouldered, with the kind of face that had seen too much human ugliness and learned to hide the toll it took. His coat was soaked, his hair plastered to his forehead, but his eyes were sharp and assessing as they took me in. "Ms. Morgan, I'm Detective James Harding." He flashed a badge. "I'm sorry about your home. Why don't we get you and your son somewhere warm and dry, and then we can talk about what happened." He led us to one of the police cruisers, where another officer produced a blanket and wrapped it around Liam. Mrs. Patterson hovered nearby, wringing her hands. "Can you tell me what happened?" I asked, my voice surprisingly steady, even though my insides were churning. Detective Harding pulled out a small notebook, flipping through pages. "According to your brother's statement, he arrived at your apartment at approximately 8:45 p.m. He says he came to drop off a birthday present for you. When he approached your door, he noticed it was ajar. He called out, got no response, and then saw that the door frame was damaged. He immediately called 911 and waited in the hallway for our arrival. He didn't enter the premises, which was smart, preserved the scene. Every word of it was a lie. Leo hadn't come to drop off a present. He had come to burgle my home to steal evidence that could destroy our family. But when Eleanor's key didn't work, they had improvised. Break the door down, take what they needed. And if they got caught, well, Leo would just say he discovered the break-in, the perfect alibi. "Where is Leo now?" I asked. "Still inside, giving his statement to one of my officers. Would you like to see your apartment?" I looked down at Liam, who was starting to shiver despite the blanket. "Mrs. Patterson, could you take him back to your place, just for a little while?" "Of course, honey. Come on, Liam. Let's go make some hot chocolate and you can tell me more about your dinosaurs." Liam clung to me for a moment, then allowed Mrs. Patterson to lead him away. I watched them disappear into the building, my heart aching. Then I turned back to Detective Harding. "Show me." We walked through the building entrance past curious neighbors, who were being questioned by officers, up the stairs to the 3rd floor. The hallway smelled like wet carpet and something else, something sharp and chemical. Paint or varnish, maybe. My door hung at an angle, the frame splintered around the lock area. Someone had taken a crowbar to it with considerable force. "They really wanted in," Harding observed. "This kind of damage takes time and effort." Either they were desperate or they were angry. Probably both, I thought. We stepped through the doorway and my heart sank. My home, my sanctuary. The place where Liam and I had built our life together had been violated. Drawers hung open, their contents dumped on the floor. Books had been swept from shelves. The couch cushions had been sliced open, stuffing spilling out like guts. My filing cabinet stood open, papers scattered everywhere. But as I looked closer, forcing myself past the emotional impact to really observe the scene, I started to notice things that didn't make sense for a typical burglary. My laptop was still on the coffee table, closed, but untouched. My TV, a decent 50-inch model I had saved up for 3 months to buy, was still mounted on the wall. My grandmother's jewelry box sat on my dresser, its contents undisturbed, the small collection of semi-precious pieces I had inherited visible through the open lid. "This is strange," Detective Harding said, echoing my thoughts. "Doesn't look like a typical burglary. Most thieves would grab the electronics first. The TV, the laptop, quick resale value. But nothing of obvious value appears to be missing." He was right. This wasn't about stealing valuables. This was a search. They were looking for something specific. "Any idea what they might have been after?" Harding asked, watching me carefully. I shook my head, not trusting myself to speak. Because I knew exactly what they were after. Documents, evidence, proof of crimes that could send my entire family to federal prison. Leo appeared from the direction of my bedroom, and for just a second, our eyes met. I saw guilt there and fear and something else, desperation. He looked like a man drowning. "Chloe," he said, his voice rough. "Thank God you're okay. I was so worried when I saw the door." "What were you doing here, Leo?" I asked quietly. He blinked, thrown by the directness of the question. "I told you at dinner I wanted to drop off Liam's birthday present early. I know his party is next week, but I thought I'd surprise you." "Where's the present?" I asked. "What?" "The present you came to drop off. Where is it?" His face cycled through several expressions. I must have left it in my car when I saw the door. I was so shocked I forgot about it." "What kind of present?" A dinosaur set, Lego, the big one he's been wanting." Liam had never mentioned a specific Lego set. Leo didn't even know my son well enough to know what he liked. The lie was so transparent it was almost insulting. Detective Harding was watching this exchange with interest. "Mr. Morgan, I have a few more questions for you if you don't mind." "Ms. Morgan, why don't you look around, see if you can determine if anything is actually missing?" I walked through my apartment like a ghost, cataloging the destruction. The kitchen drawers had been rifled through. The bathroom cabinet was open, toiletries scattered in the sink. My bedroom had been searched thoroughly, mattress askew, closet emptied. Then I walked into Liam's room and stopped breathing. His small bed had been torn apart with methodical precision. The sheets were ripped off the mattress, pulled halfway off the box spring, the small bookshelf overturned. His toys were scattered everywhere, some broken, some intact. But that wasn't what froze me in place. On his pillow, carefully positioned, was his favorite toy. The stuffed Tyrannosaurus Rex I had bought him for his 3rd birthday. The one he had named Rex and slept with every single night. The one he loved so much it had gone from bright green to a faded sage color from years of hugging and washing. Except now it had been sliced open. The cut ran from its throat down to its tail, precise and deliberate. White stuffing spilled out of the wound like entrails, and next to it, weighted down with a small rock so it wouldn't blow away, was a piece of paper torn from a spiral notebook. Block letters in black marker. "Next time it won't be a toy." My legs went weak. I grabbed the door frame to keep from collapsing, my vision swimming. This wasn't just about documents anymore. This wasn't just about covering up financial crimes. This was a direct threat against my 5-year-old son, against my baby. "Detective!" My voice came out as a croak. I tried again, louder. "Detective Harding, you need to see this." Footsteps pounded down the hallway. Harding appeared in the doorway, took one look at the scene, and his entire demeanor changed. His face went hard, his casual professionalism shifting into something cold and focused. "Don't touch anything," he ordered. "Officer Chang, I need evidence bags and the camera in here now." He pulled out his phone and started taking photos documenting the scene. Leo appeared behind him, and when he saw the stuffed dinosaur and the note, his face went white as chalk. "Jesus Christ," he whispered. I turned on him, rage burning through the shock. "Did you do this? Did you destroy my son's toy and threaten him?" "What? No, I found it like this." I called the police immediately. "You're lying," I said, my voice shaking with barely controlled fury. "You've been lying all night. You came here to steal from me, and when you couldn't get in, you broke down my door." "That's insane," Leo said, but his voice lacked conviction. "Why would I do that? You tell me." Detective Harding stepped between us. "Ms. Morgan, I understand you're upset, but let's not make accusations without evidence. Mr. Morgan, I'm going to need you to come down to the station and give a more detailed statement." "Am I under arrest?" Leo asked, his voice cracking. "Not at this time, but I'm treating this as a credible threat against a minor. I need to know everything about your movements tonight, everyone you've been in contact with, everything you saw." Harding turned to me. "Ms. Morgan, is there anyone who would want to hurt your son? Anyone you've had conflicts with, an ex-partner maybe?" Liam's father had disappeared before he was born. A one-night mistake I had paid for in sleepless nights and tight budgets and the constant weight of doing everything alone. He had never even known about the pregnancy, so no, it wasn't him. "I can't think of anyone," I said, the lie bitter on my tongue. "But I could think of someone, multiple someones, my own family." The next 2 hours passed in a blur of questions and statements and evidence collection. Crime scene techs arrived and dusted for fingerprints. They bagged the stuffed dinosaur. They photographed everything. They took my statement 3 times, asking me to walk through my entire evening, every detail. I told them about this birthday dinner. I mentioned the tension with my family. I carefully didn't mention the key I had seen Eleanor pass to Leo, the whispered instructions, the implicit threat. Not yet. I needed to be smart about this. Leo was taken to the police station for questioning. Amanda showed up in a panic, demanding to know what was going on. Marcus and Eleanor arrived shortly after, both of them dressed in different clothes than they had worn to dinner, both of them looking appropriately shocked and concerned. "Oh my God, Chloe, are you all right?" Eleanor's arms wrapped around me and I had to fight the urge to shove her away. "And poor Liam, where is he? Is he safe?" "He's with my neighbor," I said stiffly. "You should bring him to our house," Eleanor said immediately. "Just for tonight, until you can get your door fixed and feel safe again. We have plenty of room and he'd love to swim in the pool." Every instinct I had was screaming at me to refuse. But I needed to play this carefully. I needed them to think I suspected nothing, that I was just a frightened single mother, grateful for family support. "That's kind of you, Mom, but I think we'll be okay. Mrs. Patterson said we could stay with her tonight." "Nonsense, I insist." Eleanor's grip on my arm tightened, her perfectly manicured nails digging in slightly. "You've had a terrible shock. You shouldn't be alone. We're family, Chloe. We take care of each other." There was something in her voice, an edge I couldn't quite identify. Was it genuine concern, or was it something else? Did she want me and Liam close where she could watch us? "I appreciate it, Mom, but I really think it's better if we stay here. This is our home." Eleanor's face tightened almost imperceptibly before smoothing back into sympathetic concern. "Of course, darling. Whatever makes you feel safe. But promise me you'll call if you need anything at all." "I promise." By 2 a.m, everyone had finally left, except for one patrol officer who had been assigned to watch the building for the rest of the night. Detective Harding had given me his card and told me to call him immediately if I remembered anything else or if anything else unusual happened. I collected Liam from Mrs. Patterson's apartment. He had fallen asleep on her couch, curled up with one of her throw pillows, his face peaceful in sleep. She had given me a look of deep concern as she helped me carry him back to our apartment. "Are you going to be all right, dear?" she asked softly. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I'm going to figure it out." The building maintenance man had done a temporary repair on my door, securing it with a heavy bolt that could be locked from the inside. It wasn't pretty, but it would hold until I could get a proper door installed. I put Liam in my bed, then sat down in the living room and pulled out my phone. My hands were shaking so badly it took 3 tries to pull up the contact I needed. Jessica Chen answered on the first ring, her voice alert despite the late hour. "Chloe, what's wrong? It's 2 a.m. "Jess," I said and my voice cracked. "Jess, I need your help. I need it right now. Tell me." And I did. Sitting there in my destroyed living room, speaking in whispers so I wouldn't wake Liam, I told her everything. The documents I had found 2 months ago, the shell companies registered in my name, the Ponzi scheme, the money from Sterling, Eleanor passing the key to Leo at dinner, the whispered instructions I had overheard, the break-in that wasn't really a break-in, the destroyed stuffed animal, the threat against my son. When I finished, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. I could hear Jessica breathing, could almost hear her lawyer brain processing everything I had just told her. "Chloe," she said finally, her voice deadly serious. "This isn't a family dispute anymore. This is fraud, money laundering, conspiracy, and now threatening bodily harm to a minor. We're talking about multiple federal charges, decades in prison for everyone involved. And they framed you as the fall guy." "I know. Do you still have the photos of those documents?" "Yes, they're backed up on my phone, on my laptop, and on 2 separate cloud services. I was paranoid about losing them." "Good. That paranoia might have saved your life. Don't delete anything. Don't show them to anyone else except me. How soon can we meet?" I looked around at my destroyed apartment, at the police tape still across my doorway, at my sleeping son in the next room. "Tomorrow I need to make sure Liam is taken care of first. And I need to talk to you about something else." "What?" "I want to get them on tape. I want a confession, not just the documents, but actual admission of guilt that proves I'm a victim, not a perpetrator." There was a pause, then Jessica laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. "You want to wear a wire to a meeting with your family?" "Yes." "Chloe, that's dangerous. If they figure out what you're doing." "They threatened my son, Jess. They tore apart his favorite toy and left a note saying next time it wouldn't be a toy. Next time it would be him. I can't just sit here and wait for them to make good on that threat. I need to end this." Another long silence. Then, "Okay, this is what we're going to do. We're going to meet at my office first thing tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. I'm bringing in a tech specialist, someone I trust completely. We're going to wire you properly, set up backup recording, and create a detailed plan. And Chloe." "Yeah." What you're about to do is incredibly brave, or incredibly stupid, possibly both, but I'll be with you every step of the way. I hung up and sat there in the dark, listening to the rain hammering against the windows, thinking about the path I was about to walk down. There would be no coming back from this. Once I set this in motion, I would be destroying my family. My father would go to prison. My mother would go to prison. My brother would go to prison. But they had made the choice, not me. They had committed the crimes. They had used my identity to do it. They had threatened my child. I walked into my bedroom and looked down at Liam. He was sprawled across my bed like a starfish, his mouth open slightly, completely at peace. Innocent, trusting, believing that his mother would keep him safe. I wouldn't let him down. The next morning arrived gray and cold. I got Liam ready for school, told him our apartment had been damaged, but everything was going to be fine, and walked him to school, holding his hand tightly. He was quieter than usual, processing what had happened, but he didn't seem traumatized. Not yet. Kids were resilient. After drop-off, I took an Uber to Jessica's office downtown. She was waiting in the conference room with a man she introduced as Michael Torres, a private investigator and surveillance specialist she had worked with on several high-profile cases. "Ms. Morgan," Michael said, shaking my hand. His grip was firm, professional. "I understand we're dealing with a delicate situation." "That's putting it mildly," I said. For the next 3 hours we planned. Jessica had me walk through everything again, every detail of the fraud I had discovered, every interaction with my family. She took copious notes, asked probing questions, identified weak points in our evidence and our strategy. Michael showed me the equipment he would be using. A tiny microphone disguised as a pendant necklace, with a transmitter no bigger than a pack of gum that would clip to my waistband under my shirt. Multiple hidden cameras that he would install in my apartment, each one motion-activated, and streaming to a secure cloud server in real time. "The key is to get them talking," Jessica explained. "We need clear admission of guilt. We need them to acknowledge they created the shell companies, forged your signature, ran the Ponzi scheme, took Sterling's money. And we need them to admit to threatening Liam. All of it on tape, crystal clear, no room for misinterpretation." "How do I get them to confess?" I asked. Jessica smiled grimly. "You tell them you have evidence and you want to make a deal. Your mother's a narcissist. She thinks she's smarter than everyone else. When pushed, she'll justify everything she's done because she can't conceive of being wrong. And she's terrified right now. Fear makes people say things they normally wouldn't." We drafted the text message together, workshopping every word for maximum impact. "Mom, I know everything. I have documents that could destroy this family. We need to talk. Come to my apartment tomorrow at 2 p.m. Come alone or I go straight to the FBI. Short, direct. Threatening enough to provoke a response, but vague enough to not give away specifics." "Are you sure you want to do this?" Jessica asked me one more time. "Once we send this text, there's no going back." I thought about Liam's face when he had seen his destroyed dinosaur. I thought about the note. I thought about a lifetime of Eleanor's manipulation and Marcus's neglect, and Leo's complicit silence. "Send it," I said. The response came 47 seconds later. "I'll be there. But this conversation goes both ways, Chloe. You might not like what you hear." Was that a threat? Or was she planning to make me some kind of offer? Either way, it didn't matter. She was coming. That's all we needed. That afternoon, Michael came to my apartment while Liam was still at school and installed the cameras. 6 of them positioned strategically around the living room to capture every angle. He tested each one thoroughly, showing me the feeds on his laptop, making sure the audio quality was pristine. "Remember," he said as he packed up his equipment, "the more naturally you can get her to talk, the better. Don't obviously interrogate her. Let her dig her own hole." "I can do that," I said with more confidence than I felt. The day crawled by. I picked Liam up from school, made him dinner, helped him with homework, read him stories. Normal evening routine, as if my entire world wasn't about to explode. I had arranged for him to have a playdate at his friend Mason's house the next afternoon, getting him safely away from whatever was going to happen. That night, I barely slept. I kept running through scenarios in my head, imagining how the conversation might go, what I might say, how Eleanor might respond. What if she brought someone with her? What if she saw the cameras? What if she refused to talk? The next morning, I dropped Liam at Mason's house and drove to meet Jessica at her office. Michael was already there. He fitted me with the wire, adjusting the microphone pendant until it lay perfectly natural against my collarbone. "Test, test," I said softly. Michael adjusted something on his laptop and nodded. "Crystal clear. Try to stay within 8 feet of her for optimal audio quality." "And Chloe?" "Yeah." If at any point you feel unsafe, if you think the situation is escalating beyond control, say the word butterfly. That's your safe word. I'll have people nearby and they'll come in immediately. Butterfly, got it. Jessica hugged me tightly. You're doing the right thing, remember that. No matter what happens today, you're protecting your son and potentially dozens of other victims. You're a hero. I didn't feel like a hero, I felt like a woman backed into a corner with no other options. At 1:45, I was back at my apartment. The temporary door had been replaced with a proper one newly installed that morning. The living room had been straightened up, though I had left some strategic disorder to make it look like I was still recovering from the break-in. At 1:50, my phone buzzed. A text from Michael. We're live. All cameras operational. You've got this. At 1:55, another text from Eleanor. On my way up. At exactly 2 p.m., there was a sharp knock on my door. I took a deep breath, touched the pendant at my throat like a talisman, and opened the door. Eleanor stood in the hallway wearing a cream Chanel suit, designer sunglasses perched on her head, her face perfectly made up. She looked like she was heading to lunch at the country club, not to confront her daughter over felony fraud. Chloe, she said, her voice cool and controlled. She pushed past me into the apartment without waiting for an invitation. This is a mess. You really should hire a cleaning service. I closed the door and turned to face her, my heart hammering against my ribs so hard I was sure she could hear it. We need to talk, Mom. Indeed we do. She turned to face me, and for the first time, I saw past the perfect facade to something harder underneath. Where are the documents, Chloe? No preamble, no pretense, just straight to business. Somewhere safe, I said, keeping my voice steady. Don't play games with me. Your brother searched this entire apartment. You must have them stored digitally. On your phone, a cloud backup. So she was admitting Leo had broken in. She didn't even care anymore about maintaining the fiction. Why did you use my name, Mom? I asked quietly. Why did you frame me for your crimes? Eleanor waved a hand dismissively, as if I were asking about something as trivial as her choice of wine. Don't be so dramatic, darling. We didn't frame you. We simply utilized your credentials for some necessary business structures. You should be grateful. You're part of the family business now, even if you were too proud to accept a position with us. Grateful. My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. You committed fraud. You created shell companies in my name without my knowledge or consent. You forged my signature on dozens of documents. You embezzled millions of dollars from investors, including some very dangerous people. And when it all inevitably collapses, I'm the one whose name is on everything. I'm the scapegoat. Oh, for God's sake. Eleanor's composure cracked just slightly. You've always been so naive, Chloe, so idealistic. This is how business actually works in the real world. Your father and I built an empire from nothing. We created wealth opportunities, jobs. So what if we had to be creative with the accounting? Everyone does it. Every successful business pushes the boundaries of what's technically legal. That's how you get ahead. Not everyone runs Ponzi schemes, I said flatly. Eleanor's eyes narrowed. Such an ugly term. We prefer to think of it as optimizing capital flow, using new investments to maintain existing obligations while seeking new opportunities for growth. That's literally the definition of a Ponzi scheme. Semantics. The FBI won't see it that way. Eleanor went very still. So that's your play. You're going to turn on your own family, destroy everything we've built, ruin your father and brother. You destroyed yourselves, I said. I'm just trying to make sure you don't destroy me and Liam in the process. Liam. Eleanor's expression softened slightly, but there was something calculating in it. Yes, let's talk about your son, my grandson. Such a sweet boy. It would be terrible if anything happened to him. The threat was implicit but unmistakable. My hands clenched into fists. Was that you, the stuffed dinosaur, the note? I don't know what you're talking about. Next time it won't be a toy, I quoted. That was the message left in Liam's room. Are you seriously threatening a 5-year-old child? Eleanor's mask slipped further, and I saw real fear underneath. You don't understand the position we're in. You don't understand what kind of people we're dealing with. Then explain it to me. She walked to my window, looking out at the street below. For a long moment, she was silent. Then she started talking, and I could hear the years of stress and fear finally breaking through her perfect composure. Sterling, she said softly. Richard Sterling. Your father made a deal with the devil 5 years ago. We were overextended, the market was shifting. Some of our early investors were demanding returns we couldn't deliver. We needed capital injection fast. Sterling offered to invest $10 million. In exchange for what? 30% returns within 3 years. It seemed manageable at the time, but then other obligations came due. the returns we had promised to earlier investors. And the market didn't cooperate the way we had projected. So we used Sterling's money to pay the earlier investors. Classic Ponzi structure, except we always told ourselves it was temporary. We'd turn it around. We'd find a legitimate revenue stream to cover everything. But you didn't. No, Eleanor's voice was flat. We didn't, and now Sterling's 3 years are almost up. He wants his 30%, plus his original $10 million, $13 million we don't have. And Sterling isn't the kind of man who accepts excuses or delays. What happens if you can't pay him? Eleanor turned to face me, and I was shocked to see tears in her eyes. Real tears, not the crocodile tears she usually deployed for effect. He'll kill us, Chloe, not metaphorically. Literally, he'll kill your father, he'll kill me, he'll kill Leo. And then he'll come after you because you have the documents. You and Liam are collateral now. Your leverage he can use. My blood ran cold. So you did all this, created this whole fraud scheme, dragged me into it, threatened my son, all to protect yourselves from Sterling. To protect the family. Eleanor's voice rose desperate now. Don't you understand? We're trying to save all of us. If we can just get those documents, destroy the evidence, we can make a deal with Sterling. We can liquidate assets, sell properties, come up with the money somehow. But we need time. And we can't have the FBI investigating while we're trying to do that. So your solution was to frame me. Make sure if Sterling or the FBI came calling, all the evidence pointed to me. We needed someone clean, Eleanor said, as if she were explaining something perfectly reasonable. Someone with no connection to the business, no regulatory history. Your father's name was too well known in financial circles. Leo was already on the board. But you, with your little independent job and your spotless record, you were perfect. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. I was their sacrificial lamb, chosen specifically because I had tried to stay separate from their corruption. And Leo? He was okay with this, with using his own sister as a fall guy. Eleanor's face hardened. Leo does what he's told. He always has. He understands family loyalty, even if you don't. Family loyalty, I repeated slowly. Is that what you call it? Forging my signature, threatening my child? We did what was necessary. Eleanor took a step toward me, her hands raised in a pleading gesture. Chloe, please, give me the documents. Let us handle this. We can still fix it. We can bring you into the business properly. Set you up with a real position, a real salary. You and Liam would never want for anything. We'll pay off your student loans, buy you a house, set up a trust fund for Liam's education. You'd be part of the family business for real, not just on paper. So now came the carrot after the stick. First threaten my son, then offer me money. I don't want your money, I said quietly. Then what do you want? I looked at my mother, this woman who had given birth to me, raised me, and then systematically worked to destroy my life to save her own skin. A woman who would threaten her own grandchild without hesitation. A woman who saw people as tools to be used and discarded. I want you to admit what you've done, I said. I want to hear you say it. Eleanor stared at me for a long moment, her expression cycling through confusion, calculation, and finally something like understanding. You're recording this. You're. My heart stopped. She knew. How did she know? But then she laughed, a harsh, bitter sound. Of course you are. You were always smarter than we gave you credit for. Fine. You want a confession? I'll give you one. She walked to my couch and sat down, crossing her legs elegantly, as if she were giving an interview for a magazine profile, rather than confessing to federal crimes. Yes, she said clearly, looking directly at me. Your father and I created multiple shell corporations over the past 5 years. Yes, we registered them in your name without your knowledge or permission. Yes, we forged your signature on incorporation documents, tax filings, and various financial instruments. Yes, we ran what technically qualifies as a Ponzi scheme, using new investor capital to pay returns to earlier investors. Yes, we took $10 million from Richard Sterling, knowing we could never generate the returns we promised. Is that what you wanted to hear? I couldn't speak. I had expected to have to work for this, to carefully extract the admissions piece by piece. Instead, she was just laying it all out. But you need to understand why, Eleanor continued. Everything we did for this family, to protect what we've built, to secure our future. Yes, we used your name. Yes, we made you an unwitting accessory, but we were going to take care of you. You and Liam would have been provided for. That was always the plan. Until Sterling's deadline came due and you needed a scapegoat, I said. Eleanor's expression hardened. We needed time and insurance. If the investigation focused on you initially, it would buy us time to cover our tracks. Your father has connections. We could have protected you, eventually gotten the charges dismissed or reduced. But we needed you to play along, to trust us. Trust you? I couldn't help the bitter laugh that escaped. You threatened my son, you broke into my home, you destroyed Liam's favorite toy, and left a note saying next time you'd hurt him, and you want me to trust you. For the first time, Eleanor looked uncomfortable. That wasn't supposed to happen that way. Leo was only supposed to retrieve the documents. When your new lock didn't work with our key, he panicked. The crowbar, the search, the mess, that was desperation, not malice. And the dinosaur, the note. Eleanor was quiet for a moment. Then that was me. I needed you to understand the stakes. I needed you to be frightened enough to cooperate. But I would never actually hurt Liam. He's my grandson. I just needed you to think I might. So you emotionally terrorized a 5-year-old child and his mother as a negotiation tactic. I did what I had to do to protect this family. Eleanor's voice rose, cracking. You don't understand what it's like living with this pressure. Sterling calls your father every week, asking about his investment, about his returns. He's not a patient man, Chloe. The things he's implied, the people he's sent to our house. Last month, someone slashed the tires on all 3 of our cars. Your father found a dead rat on his office desk with a note attached. Time's running out. This isn't a game. These are dangerous people and they're closing in. Then go to the police. Turn yourself in. Take a plea deal before Sterling makes good on his threats. And go to prison for 20 years. Eleanor shook her head violently. I'm 60 years old, Chloe. I won't survive that. Your father has a heart condition. The stress alone could kill him. And Leo? God, Leo is so weak. He'd never make it in prison. This would destroy all of us. You destroyed yourselves, I said again. Eleanor stood abruptly, her composure fully shattered now. Fine, you want to play it that way? You want to destroy your family to save yourself? Then know this. If you go to the FBI, if you turn over those documents, I will do everything in my power to drag you down with us. I'll tell them you were involved from the beginning, that you helped create the shell companies, that you were complicit in every transaction. I'll show them transfers to your accounts. What transfers? I never received any money from you. Eleanor smiled coldly. There's $10,000 in an offshore account in your name, transferred there 2 years ago from one of the shell companies. You didn't know about it because we never told you, but it's there, traceable proof of your involvement. She was still setting me up even now, even in the middle of confessing. She was creating new evidence to implicate me. And if that's not enough, Eleanor continued, her voice dropping to something darker, I'll call Child Protective Services. I'll tell them you're mentally unstable, paranoid. I'll show them photos of your destroyed apartment and claim you did it yourself. I'll get statements from people saying you're an unfit mother, that you expose Liam to dangerous situations. I'll file for emergency custody. And Chloe, I have connections, I have money, I have lawyers on retainer who eat people like you for breakfast. I will take your son away from you, and I will make sure you never see him again. The final threat, the nuclear option, take everything from me if I didn't cooperate. I pulled away from her, my hand going to the pendant at my throat. You would really do that? You would actually take my son from me to cover up your crimes? I would do anything to protect this family, Eleanor said coldly. Anything. And you should too. We're blood, Chloe. That means something. Or at least it used to before you decided to betray us. I'm not betraying anyone. I'm protecting myself and my son from criminals who used my identity to commit fraud. Eleanor's face twisted with rage. She moved fast, grabbing for my purse where I had strategically left it on the coffee table. I had put old papers in it, useless documents that looked important. She thought I kept the evidence there. I tried to pull it away and she yanked harder. Papers spilled out across the floor. Eleanor scrambled to grab them, ripping them open, scanning them frantically. Her face went from triumph to fury when she realized they were just old bills and receipts. Where are they? She screamed. Where are the fucking documents? Safe, I said, backing toward the door. Somewhere you'll never find them. Eleanor came at me then, all pretense of civility gone. Her perfectly manicured hands reached for me, grabbing at my arms, my hair, trying to force me to tell her where the evidence was. I pushed her away and she stumbled backward, crashing into my coffee table. Books and magazines went flying. She pulled herself up, breathing hard, her perfect hair disheveled, her makeup smudged with exertion and rage. You'll regret this, she gasped. You'll lose everything, your job, your reputation, your son. I'll destroy you, Chloe. I'll make sure everyone knows what an ungrateful, vindictive, paranoid daughter you are. I'll ruin you. By the time I'm done, you'll wish you had just given me those documents. I looked at my mother, this woman I had once loved and feared and desperately wanted approval from, and felt nothing but pity and resolve. "You already tried to ruin me," I said quietly, "and you failed." I opened the door to find Detective Harding standing there, with two uniformed officers and an FBI agent whose badge identified her as Special Agent Martinez. "Detective," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the adrenaline coursing through my veins, "I think you'll want to hear what my mother has to say." "Actually, you don't have to. I recorded everything." Eleanor's face cycled through shock, rage, fear, and finally a kind of defeated understanding. She looked at me with something like respect for the first time in my life. "You did it," she said softly. "You actually did it, my own daughter." "You left me no choice," I said. The next few hours were a whirlwind. Detective Harding and Agent Martinez took Eleanor into custody. Jessica arrived with a legal team. Michael provided copies of all the recordings, both audio from my wire and video from the hidden cameras. The evidence was overwhelming and undeniable. Eleanor was arrested and charged with fraud, money laundering, forgery, identity theft, and conspiracy. She was taken away in handcuffs. Her Chanel suit, rumpled, her perfect facade finally cracked wide open. Agent Martinez had already secured warrants for Marcus and Leo based on Eleanor's recorded confession. FBI teams raided Vance Financial Group's offices, their home, Leo's apartment. They seized computers, files, phones, everything. The carefully constructed empire of lies came crashing down in a matter of hours. Marcus was arrested at his office, surrounded by stunned employees who had no idea their employer had been running a sophisticated fraud scheme. The footage of him being led out in handcuffs was all over the news by that evening. Leo turned himself in that night with a lawyer. Faced with the mountain of evidence against him, including his own mother's confession implicating him, he made a deal. He would cooperate fully with the investigation, testify against Eleanor and Marcus, and provide any additional evidence the FBI needed. In exchange, he would receive a reduced sentence. Richard Sterling was arrested 2 days later, trying to board a private plane to the Cayman Islands. It turned out the FBI had been investigating him for years, for a whole host of crimes beyond just the investment fraud. The evidence from my family's case gave them everything they needed to finally take him down. He was facing multiple life sentences. The media circus was intense. "Financial dynasty built on fraud," read one headline. "Society couples secret criminal empire," read another. Photos of my parents at charity galas and country club events were juxtaposed with their mugshots. Eleanor's perfect image was dissected and destroyed across every news outlet and social media platform. Through it all, I kept Liam close. I explained what I could in age-appropriate terms. Grandma and Grandpa made bad choices. They had to face consequences. We still loved them, but love didn't mean accepting bad behavior. He seemed to understand in the way children do, accepting the new reality, without fully grasping its weight. Jessica was with me every step of the way. She made sure I wasn't charged as an accessory, working with the FBI to clearly establish that I was a victim of identity theft, not a co-conspirator. The offshore account Eleanor had mentioned was traced back to them, and investigators confirmed I had never accessed it or even known about its existence. The trial took 8 months. I testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every document, every forged signature, every lie my family had told. I played the recording of Eleanor's confession. I described finding the shredded dinosaur and the threatening note. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Marcus was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. Eleanor got 15 years. Leo, because of his cooperation, received 5 years with possibility of parole after 3. 6 months after the trial ended, Liam and I moved to Portland. A fresh start, a new city where nobody knew our story or our name. I got a job at a nonprofit called Second Chance Financial, working with people who had been victims of fraud and financial abuse. Work that felt meaningful in a way my corporate job never had. Our new house was small but bright, a 2-bedroom bungalow with a yard where Liam could play. He had started kindergarten at a public school with good teachers and caring administrators. He made friends easily, unburdened by the weight of adult betrayals. On a Saturday morning, 3 months after we moved, a letter arrived with a prison postmark. Leo's handwriting on the envelope. I sat at my kitchen table, holding it for a long moment before opening it. The letter was 6 pages long, front and back. An outpouring of regret, apologies, explanations that explained nothing. He wrote about growing up in Eleanor's shadow, about learning that love was transactional, that value was measured in dollars and status. He wrote about being too weak to stand up to them, too scared to walk away. He wrote about the moment he raised that crowbar to my door. knowing his 5-year-old nephew was sleeping inside, and how he had hated himself even as he did it. He wrote that he understood if I never forgave him, that he didn't forgive himself. I read the letter twice, then folded it carefully and put it in a drawer. Maybe someday I would write back. Maybe someday I would take Liam to visit his uncle to teach him about second chances and redemption and the complexity of loving people who have hurt you. But not today. Today I had healing to do. I stood and walked to the window. Outside, Liam was in the backyard with a new stuffed dinosaur, this one a bright blue triceratops he had named Blue. He was running through the grass with his arms spread wide like wings, making dinosaur sounds, completely absorbed in his imaginary world. The morning sun turned his hair to gold. He was laughing, that pure, unfettered joy that only children possess. I had used my experience, my knowledge of financial systems and fraud, to establish Second Chance Financial. We provided free consulting and support to people who had been victims of financial abuse by family members, romantic partners, or employers. People who had been used, manipulated, had their identities stolen by the people who were supposed to love them. In 6 months, we had helped 23 families. It wasn't changing the world, but it was changing 23 worlds, and that mattered. The phone on the counter buzzed. A text from Jessica. Coffee tomorrow. I have good news about the foundation grant. I smiled and typed back a yes. Jessica had been there through every dark moment, every panic attack, every night I had woken up terrified that Sterling's people were coming for me. She had stood by me when my entire world collapsed. She had been the sister I should have had, the family I chose, rather than the one I was born into. I looked back out the window at my son, at this child who would grow up knowing that love didn't come with conditions, that family was about respect and trust, not blood and obligation. He would know his own worth. He would never doubt that he was valued for who he was, not what he could provide. The empire Eleanor and Marcus had built was gone, crumbled to dust, and lawsuits and asset seizures. The money they had stolen was being returned to investors where possible, though many would never fully recover their losses. The Vance name, once synonymous with success and respectability in our city's social circles, was now synonymous with fraud and betrayal. But I had something they never had and never could have. I had peace. I had integrity. I had a son who knew he was safe and loved unconditionally. I had friends who stood by me when everything fell apart. I had work that gave my life meaning and purpose beyond accumulation and appearance. I had freedom. So here's my question for you. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? Have you ever had to walk away from people you love because they were destroying you? And if you were in my position with that evidence in your hands and that threat against your child, what would you have done? Drop your answers in the comments below. Share your stories. You might help someone else who's struggling with the same impossible choice I faced. And if this story resonated with you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is choose yourself, even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted. Justice isn't just about punishment. It's about protection. It's about making sure that the people who hurt you can't hurt anyone else. And sometimes it's about building something new from the ashes of what was destroyed. That's what I'm doing now. That's what I'll keep doing. Because I'm finally free.